Most of us are very used to seeing our favorites die, but in some cases, writers take a second and reconsider their cruel intentions. Sometimes we're lucky and the character doesn't just survive, but also becomes a major part of the story. So that's what we're looking into today. All the characters that we could have lost out on, but didn't. Let's get right into it. Firstly, at number 9, Steve Harrington. Steve Harrington is one of the best characters in Stranger Things today, but that's not how it started. If you recall, season 1, you'll remember that Steve was an asshole. He was a bully, a bad boyfriend, inconsiderate, and obnoxious. Sure, he wasn't all too bad to look at, but that wasn't enough. However, the final episode of the debut season flipped the script completely. Instead of Jonathan's dad coming in to help the duo save the day, Steve joins in and changes everything. Not only does he not die, but he also becomes our favorite. The second season does a great job of showing us how much the boy has changed. He becomes the kid's official babysitter, and in that process, officially becomes our favorite character. Turns out, the Duffer Brothers only had the first season worked out, and Joe Keery played Steve so well that the showrunners decided to let him live. And boy was that the right decision. Moving on to number 8, Daryl. The Walking Dead was an immediate hit from its very first scene. The post-apocalyptic setting had everything that we wanted, mainly zombies. The show gave us many characters to root for, one of which surprisingly turned out to be Daryl Dixon. When Norman Reedus first auditioned, he had hoped to play Merle Dixon, one of the most awful characters to be introduced to us. While Michael Rooker would go on to play Merle, the creator, Frank Darabont, was so happy with Reedus' audition that he had to include him in the series. So he wrote a small role for him. He'd play Daryl, Merle's brother, who never appeared in the comics. Reedus would get to play a small role and die at the hands of a zombie when his time came, but Frank never expected that Daryl would become a fan favorite. Somehow, despite being very unlikable in the beginning, his role was extended, and he became pivotal to the plot. In fact, the character is so popular with fans that the comic creator, Robert Kirkman, will write Daryl into his stories as well. Next up, in 7th place, Han Solo. Harrison Ford is a very talented guy, but he'll always be known for playing one of the most famous criminals ever. Han Solo, Luke Skywalker, and Princess Leia made up the trio in Star Wars: A New Hope, and fans loved each one of them. Turns out, the lovable rascal wasn't meant to survive for as long as he did. If you'll recall, in Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back, Solo is frozen in carbonite and taken away by Darth Vader, and later sold to Jabba the Hutt. In fact, no one knew if he would survive the process at all. To top it all off, no one knew if Ford would return for the third part or not. And when he finally did return, he lobbied to get Solo killed. He even explained his reason in an interview with Jimmy Kimmel. According to him, killing off the one character without the Force in some noble way would be a good send-off for the character who was commonly known as a criminal. Well, they listened to Ford when the sequel trilogy came about, but thankfully Solo survived and lasted for the entire trilogy. Following up at number 6, Jesse Pinkman. Breaking Bad isn't considered one of the best shows ever for no reason. They did what no one had when they became the series with a likable lead before turning him into a villain by its end. But he's not the only one the show focused on. One of the other characters was his partner in crime, Jesse. Jesse would become one of the most important secondary characters in the series. We'd follow him as he fell into despair, and at the end of the first season, he would die. His grisly death was intended to push Walter into becoming the ruthless drug lord that he eventually becomes. According to sources, it's the writer strike that occurred between 2007 and 2008 which caused the first season to be shortened and hence saved Jesse. When the plot had to be adjusted, the creator, Vince Gilligan, took the time during the strike to rethink his death. Vince claims that he knew by episode 2 that Aaron Paul shouldn't be allowed to leave. Thankfully, the creators stopped themselves from making a colossal mistake. Coming up in 5th place, Spock. Whether you've seen Star Trek or not, you'll know Spock. You'll know what he looks like with his short hair and expressionless face, and know just how important he is to Star Trek fans. Well, Leonard Nimoy never intended to play the beloved character for as long as he did. In fact, he was so hesitant to play him again that Spock wasn't included in the first draft of Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. But then walked in Jack B. Sowards, the screenwriter, with an appealing idea. Why not kill the character off spectacularly? Nimoy approved the idea. Spock would be killed off at the beginning of the movie, which would shock fans too. But every time they got close to the scene, Sowards would just rewrite the script and push the death further into the script. With every rewrite, he shifted the scene further back, and Nimoy approved the change at every step, until the death scene was pushed away entirely. Nimoy loved Sowards' writing so much that not only would he continue to play the character, but he would do so for another 27 years. Moving on to number 4, Nebula. Nebula is a lesser-known character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, until the day she was given a larger role in Avengers Endgame. The complex role started off as a psychopath intent on killing, but eventually grew out of Thanos' grasp. Not only would she become an immediate favorite after the events of Endgame, but she also had amazing chemistry with everyone on screen. But our favorite blue alien was supposed to be killed off in the very first Guardians of the Galaxy movie. Karen Gillan, who plays Nebula, was saved because the script went through multiple rewrites. According to the actress, every time they'd get to the death scene, the script would change. The actor never expected that and was pleasantly surprised when she returned for the second volume, and we are very thankful for Gunn's indecisiveness. Next up, in third place, Poe Dameron. A member of the Star Wars sequel trilogy was meant to die quite early on. Poe Dameron, who was played by Oscar Isaac, made such an impression as the pilot that he lived all through the trilogy. Poe was supposed to crash and disappear in the earliest drafts, while he helped Finn escape. And if you recall the events of the movie, that had almost happened. He does crash, and Finn walks away with his jacket. J.J. Abrams fortunately changed his mind and let Poe live and reunite with Finn. When Isaac was told that he would simply play a key role in the movie and die, the actor wasn't too happy about it. He had already done that, but took the role anyway. Not only did Poe survive the film and the trilogy, but is now rumored to make a comeback in a secret Star Wars movie as well. And that is just what we wanted. Following up at number 2, Ron Weasley. All Harry Potter fans probably know this already, but while writing the books, Rowling planned to kill off several characters before changing her mind. At one point, she had planned to kill off Hagrid, and before the final book was published, fans were worried that she would kill off Harry as well. While they all survived, it turns out that Ron Weasley was supposed to die too. After Cedric Diggory's role, readers knew that the tone was turning more serious, and then she killed off Sirius Black and Albus Dumbledore one after the other. Come on, we even lost one of the Weasley twins in the final book, but had Rowling decided to kill Ron, she would have a riot on her hands. Fortunately, Rowling changed her mind, and Ron and Hermione lived happily ever after. Finally, in the first place, Ripley. Alien was a groundbreaking science fiction movie and made Sigourney Weaver a star as well. Let's not forget that it was one of the first movies that featured a strong female lead in such an intense role. But turns out that Elle Ripley wasn't all that crucial to the plot. According to the director, Ridley Scott, his original brutal ending played out a lot differently. Ripley would harpoon the alien, who would be unaffected by it, and so slam into the lead and rip her head off. This idea was scrapped for the much better ending that we have today, and Ripley lived on to become the most badass character on screen ever. And that's a wrap for this video. Do you think any of these characters should have been killed off earlier than planned? Let us know in the comments below, and make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos just like this. We'll see you in the next one, and thanks for watching.